On October the 1st, the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region celebrated the 72nd anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China in peace, without violent protests or barriers around government offices. Chief Executive Carrie Lam said the city is back on the right track after 2 years of anti-government protests that damaged infrastructure, disrupted the economy and lowered public morale. After the introduction of the national security law and the improvement of the election system and the election laws, how is this National Day different from the past? On the eve of the holidays, a top central government official in Hong Kong visited grassroots communities there. Why now? And what's the significance? I'm pleased to be joined by Witman Hung, a National People's Congress deputy from Hong Kong, and Lyu Xiang, a research fellow from the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, joining us also from Hong Kong. Gentlemen, welcome to The Point. Witman, let me go to you first. How has the mood been on the streets in Hong Kong on the 72nd National Day? What are the differences between this year and the last 2 years, for instance?
I think the first thing is people are much happier. It's a much bigger crowd of people going out, entertaining. Restaurants are full, lots of flags, and you don't see these riots anymore. I mean, last year was already quite, much better compared to the year before. But this year, really, we are seeing, for example, the central government office, they have removed the water-filled barriers. The liaison office as well, I just visited them today, and they have removed those water-filled barriers as well. I think, to put it simple, we are almost back to normal.
What accounted for these changes, Witman? And also, we're looking at images of the flag-raising ceremony in Hong Kong, where the soldiers are doing a much better job, carrying out the whole ceremony in goose steps, in a much more solemn manner compared to the past. What's the significance of all of that?
I think, well, it's actually not the troops, it's the policemen. And they are using the Chinese marching style. We have been talking about this for a long time, but, for them to actually make up their mind and change. I think now everybody in the Hong Kong government has a much stronger feeling that we're proud to be part of China. And therefore, I mean, even though we have like 50 years no change, that means the overall system is no change, but we can still change these minor things, such as the marching steps. So, and I think they were, the march and also the command were done in Mandarin, so it was quite smooth. Everybody was happy, a much bigger turnout as well at the reception. I think they invited more people, basically. When we don't hear all these protest noise anymore, because I think last year they didn't have anyone with war, but before there was always people who were trying to make a protest very near to the flag raising site, which is really, very annoying.
Yeah, Lyu Xiang, you have gone to Hong Kong and you have observed the situation. What do you think accounted for the changes, and what do these changes mean? Because for the people who have different opinions about all of this, they might say, look, Hong Kong lost its diversity or freedom of expression or, different opinions. But for the people who are pro the changes, they would say, look, this is what a country should be, right? When you are one country, you celebrate the birthday of that country, for sure.
Yes, actually, this is the first National Day I spent in Hong Kong. I cannot make a comparison based on my personal experience, but we know what happened 2 years ago. I think the biggest change of this year's celebration is that people eventually got freedom. They got freedom from fear. So now, if you are on the streets, you don't need to feel any fear. You can go anywhere you like. This is the greatest change. So we see so many people on the Hong Kong streets raising the red flags, and they don't need to be afraid of anything. So that's a normal country should be. So I'm very glad to see all this happening.
Some media reports have been focusing, instead of the celebrations and the happiness that people are showing, they focus instead on the so-called massive police deployment. So, Witman, how big was the police deployment? Is the peace on the streets of Hong Kong a result of heavy policing or some other factors?
No, I mean, we have the same number of policemen, I mean, compared to 2 years ago, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. But the main thing is we now have the national security law, and we know that the government, our government and our police has the determination to execute the law. Okay, as we can see from previous, arrests of rioters, prosecutions, as well as the determination and the firmness. I mean, the problem with 2 years ago is some people are unsure. They do not know, even when these people were breaking the law, they do not know if they will be punished. Now it's very clear. I mean, national security law is there. I mean, as far as, in fact, some of these riots can be punished under the old Hong Kong law. It was just not executed, 2 years ago. So now people are, I think one of the things about rule of laws is we can predict, okay? We can predict that when people can predict, they know exactly what to do.
Another very important development was the visit by Lyu Xiang, who is head of the central government's liaison office in Hong Kong, last week, of grassroots communities in the SAR to find out about their living and working conditions. We also saw images and reports about him visiting people living in so-called cage houses, really tiny living spaces for less than 2 square meters per person. And he also visited fishermen, elderly residents, shop owners, entrepreneurs. One fisherman exclaimed that it was really the first time in 20 years that such a senior official came to their fishing boat and asked about how they're doing. Mr. Lyu, what is special about this visit? How is this significant?
Oh, it's very important for Mr. Lyu to visit these grassroots people. In Hong Kong, because of the one country, two systems, Hong Kong keeps its typical capitalistic system. And you may say it's the most lazy, fair capitalism in Hong Kong. And in such a society, you can see the vibrant economy, but you can always see the victims, a large number of people who are living in extreme poverty. They are not the majority of the society, but the number is considerable. Some 200,000 people are living in the so-called cage house, or even some people say that is coffin house. A very miserable life. So representing the central government, Mr. Lyu has the responsibility to see the real living condition of these poor people and to give suggestions to the SAR government.
Witman, why was this the first time? I mean, Hong Kong has come back, more than 2 decades. Why has the central government officials not visited such communities earlier, or we haven't seen these kind of reports earlier?
Yeah, I think they have. I mean, even Mr. Lyu, I think earlier he had actually visited Tsim Shui Po, some of the really low-income area. I don't think he visited the cage homes last time, but he did visit some of the very poor family and talked with them. He also went to some of the government housing estates. So they are better, compared to cage homes, but still, very underprivileged groups. I think this carries 2 messages. Number one is the central government is aware of the poverty situations in Hong Kong, and they want to do something about it. I mean, if you remember, Xia Baolong also spoke earlier an occasion when he said, his vision about Hong Kong, a few years from now, that nobody needs to live in this, cage homes anymore. Another key message is very clear is, I think the central government is trying to pinpoint, to the press and to the general public, housing problem is really one of the most important issues in Hong Kong. Now that we have solved out all the security issues, now that we're going back to normal, let's sort out these deeply rooted problems that have been in Hong Kong since I was young.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was a kid, there were
One
people
of the
living in cage.
Yeah, a very important question was asked during the visit. Luo Huining said the fundamental issue of Hong Kong's development was who should the development serve. Mr. Lyu, what does this question mean, and why is this question fundamental to Hong Kong's development?
Oh, yes. I already said that Hong Kong is a typical capitalistic society, and now facing the serious problem of poverty, the government, the administration has to think about how to serve the whole people, how to elevate these poor people to give them a decent life, not rich, but just decent. So I think Mr. Luo's message is that Hong Kong, the central government will not intervene, will not want to change the system of Hong Kong, but the Hong Kong administration has to make some system innovation so that people can enjoy a decent life, all the people, not just a few people.
Right. Luo said his heart sank on seeing the living and working conditions, and added that what troubles Hong Kong compatriots also catches the attention of the central government. Whose job is it going to be to make sure that development serves everybody? Does the central government risk stepping on the toes of the SAR government in looking at matters of governance, Witman? And keep it short, please.
Yeah, I think it is the SAR government. Any government, no matter what, under what systems, will be responsible for the well-being of its people. So in Hong Kong, I mean, of course, we have a different system compared to mainland, but still, we need to maintain the minimum living conditions and a respectable living condition of every single Hong Kong person. So it is the local government's job. I think the central government is putting some, I'll say to a certain extent, pressure so that we know this is our priority.
Finally, interesting development. Boris Johnson, the British Prime Minister, posted a video talking about taking actions on illegitimate protesters who are unfairly blocking motorways and disrupting people's lives in the UK. Mr. Lyu, have you noticed this video? What is your comments? 30 seconds, please, if you can. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I didn't expect this question. Actually, it's very interesting. The writers in Hong Kong has a doctrine saying that 违法达义 to break the law, so that in order to achieve social justice. So in England, a few people of this kind tried, and they got suppressed immediately. So it's an interesting phenomenon, and okay, we can laugh at this small group of people.
We are going to leave it there. Many thanks to Witman Hung and Lyu Xiang joining us from Hong Kong. And with that, we come to the end of this edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin. As always, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter using the handle Liu Xin in Beijing. Thanks for watching. You've got The Point.